Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and.
Adam.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
I'm hanging in there, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm on spring break this week, and so I'm getting a break from being in the classroom, but I'm still preparing stuff, of course, for like when we
Mm-hmm.
come back. And I do children's choir at the church, and so we they sung this past Sunday, and we have another part of them singing for Easter. So yes, but I'm doing good. Little break,
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah. So, dear listener, we're kind of rusty. We kind of rusty, but we got it.
Yeah,
The
our rhythm. It's not as easy to find our rhythm when we only do this every month
Yeah,
rather than
just
every
kind
week.
of get out of that. But
Yeah.
dear listener, if you are enjoying what you're listening to, please like, share, subscribe. Now we're more of a rare commodity. And so, hopefully that makes us more valuable, in your listening time.
Supply and demand.
Yes,
The law of scarcity.
yes. Hopefully that makes us a little more valuable. But if you're enjoying us and if you're enjoying our conversations, please like it and share it. People are still engaging. They're looking for us. People, I think the young folks say they checking for us. You know what I'm saying? So,
All
so,
right,
uh,
if you say so, Phil.
so today, Adam, what are we gonna be talking about?
We thought that it would be cool if I shared a little bit more about my experience in Russia.
Yeah.
Um, it's the kind of experience that I'm still processing. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, as soon as I get back to the United States and distance from and enough distance to start processing, I'm thrown immediately under the deluge of the semester here.
Right.
So hopefully my memory is good enough by this summer when hopefully things are a little bit
Right. Okay.
calmer that
Uh
I
huh.
can continue to do more processing then. Because right now, 99.8% of my brain power is occupied in the this instant
Mm-hmm.
rather
Mm-hmm.
than in, you know, uh, making sense of that experience. But I will
Right.
share a little bit um, of of that experience. So um, I will try not to repeat myself too much from what I said in the last episode, but I will just, if maybe any of our listeners to this episode didn't tune in to last month's episode, I went to St. Petersburg on a professional development grant to study Russian choral music. Um, and so I did my visit was sponsored by the Rimsky-Korsakov State Conservatory in St. Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
the oldest conservatory of music in Russia, and um, and so I went, and they were incredibly gracious, incredibly hospitable, incredibly welcoming. And I observed choral conducting faculty and choral rehearsals. I interviewed choral conducting faculty and a composer and a musicologist, Russian musicologist, and I did some work in their library with scores not available to us here in the US. Um, and it was absolutely an incredible experience. I was at the conservatory for the entire work week, except for Wednesday, because the Wednesday during the week that I was there was the Defender of the Fatherland holiday.
Oh, okay.
So the conservatory was not in session that Wednesday, which means that was the day that I went to the Hermitage and saw all of that incredible art. Um, so my experience at the conservatory, uh, my first day, Phil, I've been in higher ed for a really long time now. Like, if you count my days as a student,
Uh huh.
it's like 19 years in higher education with 3 years off to go teach high school, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I've been in higher education for a long time, and still, my first day at the conservatory felt like my first day of college. Everything was so new. I mean, at the risk. No, it's not even a risk. It's a sure thing. I will definitely sound cliche when I say this, but everything was so foreign. Um,
Uh-huh.
so their educational system is just so wildly different from ours. Um, Probably it would be best if I began just by describing the difference in the education system in general. This is
Right.
not about music education.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Russian students go through what would probably be the equivalent of ninth or 10th grade in the United States. And then that is the end of their secondary training. And at that point, they can choose to go to university, and there is this track that would be much more familiar to us as Americans: bachelor's degree, master's degree, maybe even a PhD. Um, but there is this alternative track that I knew nothing about. Keep in mind, these students are entering the conservatory younger than an
Right.
undergraduate student is entering an American college or university.
Mm-hmm.
But after ninth or 10th grade, students can take an entrance exam to uh, get into the conservatory. Um, Pre-conservatory, there's also a thing they call college that is something between middle and high school. It's very difficult to understand. A really wonderful student at the conservatory actually even drew me a flow chart. So Phil, off the air, I'll share that flow chart with you.
Okay.
But the the students are entering the conservatory at probably uh, around age 20 after doing college, which is like somewhere between high. It's kind of equivalent to post high school something, and so they're entering the conservatory around age 20, and then they spend 5 years there. It is a 5-year program.
Mm-hmm.
I was specifically observing the choral conducting students, and there were almost 60 of them because they admit 12 a year, and the program is 5 years long. And the reason there are so many choral conducting students is because students in other musical disciplines don't participate in the choir. The choirs are made up entirely of students whose major is choral conducting.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And likewise, the voice students, they don't participate in choir. They only sing in the opera. And the choral conducting students would never be in the opera. It's very divided in that way. Whereas in the U.S., I think we try to we encourage, at least in a lot of institutions, we encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Not so in Russia. You stick to your one thing and you do that one thing very, very well. So another thing that was fascinating to me, the students in the choral conducting program, once they pass their entrance exams, which they need to pass to get in, that's where you cover your solfeggio and your music theory and your music history. They don't take classes at the conservatory. Instead, they take an hour piano lesson every week with a private teacher, during which they are working on choral scores, not piano music. They take an hour voice lesson every week, and then they take 3-hour-long private conducting lessons every week, in addition to participating in the choral ensembles and leading the choral ensembles. So that is their education, which is just wild to me, right? They don't take classes, they just take lessons. So it's a very, it's an intensely one-on-one kind of training, individualized training.
Let me ask you something. So like the if that is the conservatory experience, I imagine that pre-conservatory they have to come in. They're already singing. Must have great oral skills. The music theory is there. Like, and is this is what they're doing? Like, do they come in on this track? Like, are you making a decision like in middle school or elementary school?
Yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need those years of study.
You need those skills before
Yeah.
you can pass the entrance exams.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, you're making that decision very young. There's a unusual but very well renowned boys' college where students will enter in the 8th grade. It's called the Glinka College, and it's a singing college. It's a choir college. Again, I'm using college in the Russian way, not the American way. So in 8th grade, these boys are going and doing nothing but music all day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. So that's the student experience. Let me talk about the faculty experience. Choral conducting faculty, there are two, the head of the department and one other professor will occasionally conduct the conservatory choirs, but they have a large conducting faculty because the typical conducting professor, their job is to teach 6 to 10 private students in their conducting lessons 3 times a week. That is their job. And then when their student is leading the choir, they will go and watch their student conduct.
Right.
That is their job. So that, again, was wild to me. Some of them have choirs out in the community, and others of them are to the point in their career where they don't want a choir anymore. They just want to teach conductors. So that's wild to me, as my American bias is like, oh my word, I want to be leading my own ensemble, not just teaching others to lead an ensemble. And let's talk about the lessons themselves. The lessons, of course, it varies by the personality of the teacher, and I observed really different personality types. But the structure of the lesson is that the student enters and waits for the previous student to finish, and then when the previous student is done, the student takes the podium, and the student has the hour with the professor and not one, but 2 pianists, 2 staff pianists.
Wow.
Who, if it is a piece of a cappella choral music, one of the pianists will play the soprano and alto lines, the other pianist will play the tenor and bass lines. If it is a piece of accompanied choral music, one of the pianists will play the choral parts and the other pianist will play the accompaniment. So, again, isn't that just amazing?
It is.
And that happens
amazing.
3 times a week for each student. So, yeah, it is remarkable what the amount of personnel that are dedicated to each student, personnel hours devoted to each student. And the teaching styles were, ranged from very easily frustrated to very encouraging. They ranged from very loquacious to much more down to business.
Mm-hmm.
The teaching style really, like with any, with pedagogues of any nationality, it was incredibly varied. But yeah, the experience of conducting for your private lesson was really brand new to me. I have 3 degrees in music, and in choral conducting related fields. Never did I have a lesson like I observed these students receiving. Um,
Did you have the opportunity to have a lesson?
I
Or
did not. No, I did
okay.
interview the choral conducting faculty, and so those were fascinating conversations about Russian choral music and about the weaknesses of American choirs that attempt to interpret Russian choral music, and those are wonderful conversations. Um, and then, yeah,
Can let,
I
let
would
me
say the. Oh, go ahead.
so with all of this you're saying, like we can kind of like compare. We've been kind of like informally comparing the U.S. kind of music educational system to like the Russian music educational system. Like, and maybe you're still in processing. I'm sure there are pros and cons to both. But do you think that one is higher than the other one? Have you come to that determination, or like, or what are the areas?
um, I think from what I observed, and I was only at the conservatory 4 days.
Well,
So, from what I observed, I think the American system produces a more well-rounded
mm-hmm.
student. Um, I think the Russian system is not about breadth, it is about depth. And I think the Russian system, some of those students, their conducting gesture was outstanding. Better than I have seen from American students of the same age. So, and the yeah, there were some gestures that just were breathtaking. So the gestural training I think is better than in America. Um, in observing the choral rehearsals, I I do think that um, American conductors are trained to be resourceful on the podium, to to have a large bag of rehearsal strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the rehearsing that I observed with the choirs in Russia were a lot of talking about the sound rather than strategies for getting that sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, if I were to compare my own students to the students at the conservatory, I would say my students do not have the zigs and zags down on really not nowhere near the level of the Russian conductors. But I do think my students have better teaching, better pedagogy. Uh, and of course, this is a generalized statement, right? There are going to be some monumentally gifted Russian teachers, and there are going to be some wonderfully gifted American conductors, gesturers.
Mm-hmm.
But that is my general observation.
And it seems like, I mean, because I remember as we talked about that, and as we worked through gesturing, it's a language that again has to be developed over time. Like
Yes.
you're spending that time, and whether you need to be doing it with a teacher, because you need someone to
Yes.
say to you, that's not a good gesture,
Right. Exactly.
and here's a better one, or something like that. So I
Yes.
can definitely see that lending itself to that again, spending not only the 5 years in conservatory, but pre that, like you're going to conservatory
Yes.
to be a choral conductor. I can see that.
Right. Exactly.
Mm.
So that was my experience. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about it. It
Are there
was amazing.
are there anything of course, you went there to better understand how to teach Russian choral music, which I had a chance to experience. One, I think we did two pieces. I think at least.
Oh yeah, I do a Russian piece every year. I just love it so much.
Right.
Yeah, at least one piece of Russian music every year. Yeah, so here are the big takeaways. The way I teach conducting lessons has changed
Okay.
because of the many conducting lessons I observed at the
Okay.
conservatory. That was very inspiring just to see some wonderful teachers and how they interacted with their students. My understanding of Russian choral music has deepened. This is really through the interviews as they talked about the characteristics that make Russian music what it is, that the low basses and this Russian pathos that you need to bring to it. And one of the teachers said to me, Russians have always lived such a hard life. And if you haven't lived a hard life, you can't really replicate the Russian pathos. And so that really stuck with me. And then this is sort of a technical thing, but I've been thinking a lot about this, not just for Russian music, but for all music. And it was more of an observation that I made than anything that was said to me. But when I observed the choral rehearsals, never did the conductor need to address vibrato. Because vibrato to these singers was intricately linked to dynamic level. If the dynamic was incredibly soft, the sound was almost straight tone. And if the sound was incredibly loud, there was this big, almost, not wobbly, but really vibrant, really pronounced vibrato. And every dynamic gradation between pianissimo to fortissimo, every dynamic gradation had this accompanied, completely locked together, totally coordinated vibrato rate and range change. And if I could figure out a way to get my singers to process dynamic and vibrato in the same way, I need to figure out a way to do that other than just be born in Russia and listen to Russian choirs your whole life, because unfortunately none of my students are Russian and none of them are listening to Russian choral music from the womb. So
well, but I was observing. I'm not observing. I was listening to a choir over the weekend, and I noticed. I think we are in the United States, and definitely our young people are influenced, like you said, by what they're listening to, of course. And so, if you're listening to pop music, that is gonna come through in your singing, especially unconsciously. And as I was listening to these singers, I'm like, this is your pop influence coming through in your singing, in your solo singing. Yes. And so like, I think like that is that is a great thought though, because like we understand acoustic music, right? It is the vibrations it is the vibrations that are producing the sound. And so like, and that's basically what our vibrato is, that freeness in the voice.
Right.
And yeah, that I mean, yeah. I hope you figure out a way, and I would love to hear how you work on that.
I will. I'll let you know once I have it figured out. Haven't figured it out yet. I'm just talking about it. I'm like the Russians, right? I'm instead of telling people how to do it, which is what I want to do, instead I'm just talking about it. Like, wouldn't it be nice if you did this?
Right.
So, anyway, maybe the lesson out there is for our parents listening to the podcast, play lots of classical, non-amplified vocal music in your homes
Yes.
for your children.
Yes. Yeah, I think if the voice, like if we're working on that, like just, and that's the goal, right? Is to sing with freedom. To have more energy, you need to sing, and to sing more and to have a higher dynamic. You have to have more breath, which will probably
Yes.
produce more vibrato.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a way. I'm listening. I'm waiting for you to
Oh,
mechanize it for us.
what a weight on my shoulders. Let me get through the semester and then I'll have time to think. Yeah. So that was my experience in Russia, and that is a brief discussion of the Russian music education system.
Yeah, that is very interesting. That is very interesting. So yeah, maybe we can get somebody on here who's actually lived it to talk about it next time, or in a future episode. That would be really cool.
Yes. That would be really cool. Actually, I have a person in mind. Her English is amazing. I'll reach out.
Well, great, great. This is exciting. So let's go on to current events as we wind down.
As is our tradition,
Yes.
I actually this week have chosen not to address a current event. I would instead like to give a recommendation. Do I have your
Okay.
blessing to do that?
Yes.
I um, I want to recommend to all of the adults, because there is the occasional curse word in these videos.
Okay.
I want to recommend to all of the adults the YouTube channel of Uncle Roger.
Uncle Roger.
Phil,
Okay.
do you know Uncle Roger?
I don't know Uncle Roger.
I have discovered him since we last talked last
Okay.
month. He is a character played by the stand-up comedian Nigel Lung, who is a Malaysian comedian living in the UK right now. And he has invented this character named Uncle Roger, who reviews other people's YouTube videos of making food.
Okay.
And he really roasts these people for especially making Asian food incorrectly.
Okay.
So he's just really funny, and I have laughed a lot from watching these videos. And of course, the YouTube algorithm now shows me
Right.
Uncle Roger constantly.
Yes.
So that is my recommendation, Uncle Roger.
So, my current event, I think I'm gonna go with this. I don't know. I watched very little of the past two award shows, the Grammys. I'm more interested in the Grammys as a musician than the Oscars, and I watched very little of the Oscars. I think I only watched the red carpet of the Oscars, and then I hear Wendy tells me the next morning, "Did you hear what happened?" I'm like, "What happened? Did someone trip and fall or what?" No, but like there was a slap, and we don't even really need to talk about it because I'm sure everybody has heard about it because I mainly watch sports like commentary, and sports commenters was talking about the slap.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's just a continuation. I think at the beginning of our podcast, we talked about, I talked about Will and Jada Smith and their whole marriage situation, and it seems like a continuation of that. And so I'm just really praying for them, and now they've involved another person, Chris Rock, in this situation, and it seems like he's handling what happened, as best as anyone could.
Yep.
I can't imagine being slapped on, international television, because that's like the way we've been able to hear the full exchange. I think is from Japanese and Australian TV, because it was censored in the United States.
Yep.
And so like this is an international situation now, and so like it's just, I'm just praying for that family, because this seems like a continuation of the issues that we talked about before, and I just hope there is some deliverance. I don't know what other word I could say. Deliverance for them. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Phil, what did you learn this week?
I learned that I'm wondering, should I get Anais a conducting baton now, or wait till later?
Well, do you want to send her to Russia?
Not right now. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think you should. Definitely not right now.
Not right now. But yeah, no, this was very insightful. I think, what I really am thinking about is just how we give people skills. Like, how do we invest in making sure that our students are, like we talk about, empowered.
Yes, exactly.
They want them to be empowered, and so hopefully that that intense time of training empowers these musicians, and so maybe that's something we can, really work on here.
Yes, I agree.
What about you? Did you learn anything?
Well, I liked what you said about how evident it is, even in a choir's sound, that the music in their ears is not choral music. Right? Yeah. So I think, what we listen to really matters.
Yeah, it does.
I really, as we're making our own oral image, our own sound concept, our own ideal tone quality, there are a lot of influences that go into that.
It is. There are.
Yep. Anything else for the good of the order?
That's it.
That's it. All right, Phil. Well, great to see you as always. Happy April.
Yes, happy April.
And the next time I see you, it's either going to be the last week of classes, final exams week, or I will be free.
Wow.
So you'll be able to tell, dear audience, without us even saying, if the weight of the world is still on my shoulders, we're recording it at the beginning of May. On the other hand, if I am light and free and easy, we've recorded it after commencement on May 14th.
Okay.
All right, Phil. You have a great day. And hey, dear audience, I hope you have a great day too. Bye for now.
Adios.